Hi, I'm Peter Hall, and I'm here to tell you about the breakup of the AT&T company, the world's largest corporation, which I like to refer to, personally at least, as the rape of Ma Bell. We're talking about the breakup, the divestiture of the largest corporation in the world, the most efficient telephone system in the world, a system that was rather peculiar in a number of ways that I'm going to go into. This was a $150 billion corporation with several million shareholders, and a role in the development of modern communications that is, of course, unparalleled. We have lost this company as of January 1st, 1984. What we've got instead now is what are called regional holding companies and what is called the new AT&T. Of these regional holding companies, there are 7 which are scattered geographically around the country. They're roughly of equal size. You'll all come to know their names very well. They're interesting names. The one in New York is called 9X, which has been compared on Wall Street to the name you might give to a new prophylactic or perhaps a new acne medicine. There's one called US West out west, which some people think should have been the name of an airline. And then there are familiar names like Southwestern Bell, which is headquartered in St. Louis. These regional holding companies will be selling some equipment. They will be giving you your old line service on a local basis. They will be raising your rates, and they will be screaming for more money constantly. This, you will find they will need, but you will not want to give it to them, and I think we will probably all have to in the end. As far as AT&T goes, here we're going to have a company that's only worth $57 billion now. It'll have given away some $100 billion in assets, and it's saying that it will only make $2.1 billion next year. But this is not something you should feel terribly sorry for them about, because they will be making a lot more money in the future after that. AT&T is going to be keeping its Western Electric division, which we've all heard about. They've owned it since the late 1880s. This is a $12 billion company last year that makes telephones. They will be making fewer of those, and they will be making more computers. They will be doing international business for the first time since 1925, when AT&T sold off its international operations to what later became ITT. And this international wing has already made deals with NV Philips of the Netherlands. It's bought 25% of Olivetti in Italy, and it's going to not make very much money for a number of years, but it has a promising future. We will also have Bell Labs, which is going to be a bit smaller than it used to be, and it will no longer be doing the sort of Nobel Prize work that we've come to expect from it. Here's a division that's had 20,000 patents given to it, won 7 Nobel Prizes, and I'm afraid there's a national asset gone down the drain, because this company will now be focused upon making profitable goods, no longer that in love. And it will have what's called ATT Information Systems, which is a tricky business that's rather complicated to go into, but started a couple of years ago and will now be selling computers and doing retail marketing. These are the ATT phone stores you've come to bring your phone to when it broke down, and they're going to be concentrating more and more on computers. They own whatever phones you still rent from AT&T, and they're not really keen on owning those phones, you will find. ATTIS, as we call it, is interested in computers. Then finally, we still have the Long Lines division, which continues to provide long-distance service, controls 95% of the long-distance communications in this country, and if certain economists are correct, will actually increase their market share, not cut it. They're faced with competition from people like MCI, Sprint, etc., and that's a tricky business, but AT&T will derive most of its revenues from long lines for some time to come, which will mean high rates, unlike some things we've heard about phone rates. And finally, we have the press, which for the most part has been telling us this is a good thing when they've been telling us about it at all. The background on all this starts back 100 years ago with, of course, Alexander Graham Bell doing work on machines for the deaf, coming up with this odd machine that deaf people can't use. And I found out today in a conversation with my prospective co-writer of a great book about this that you all have to buy, which might be entitled The Rape of Ma Bell, his patent was fraudulent. From there, they went on to try to sell out to Western Union, which was not smart enough to buy in. And after some competition, Western Union decided to keep the telegraph. AT&T took the telephone, and this is the equivalent to, I'll take the horse business and you will take the cars. Thank you. AT&T didn't do too well right away. It started roping in a lot of local telephone companies around the country by buying parts of them. And then a man named Theodore Vail came along very soon and set up, in his 2 different terms of tenure with the company, the system as we now know it, which controlled the great bulk of telecommunications in this country, even though there are still 1,500 independent telephone companies. AT&T, with the exception of a few areas where independents had a lot of control, AT&T has been the phone company. And this all came to a head with Theodore Vail's policy as he took out an ad in the 1920s. One system, one policy, universal service, which sounds a bit like a later politician in Germany, but in fact delivered on this. Universal service was the ad cornerstone of an empire by which AT&T made a deal with the government. They would provide excellent communications for people at an affordable cost for all Americans, tie everyone into the system, and revenues from various facets of the system would go towards ensuring that people could buy telephone service at a cheap rate, installation. Then this money flew in a very complicated loop through various state regulations. The government supported this. This was not popular with liberals who thought that a private company should not benefit from a governmental operation, and then it wasn't popular with conservatives who thought that the government shouldn't be sponsoring a business. Then this left AT&T rather unpopular, but it was, as I said, effective. Now AT&T rolled very nicely along in the 50s, went through one antitrust suit, agreed to stay out of the computer business, although they developed a lot of computers, and they've been using them internally for many years. They were a forerunner. They invented the transistor, which later led to computers. Then in the 60s, you had what was called the Carter phone case, where oil companies wanted radio phones for their oil rigs offshore and helped the tiny companies selling Carter phones win a case against AT&T. This is the beginning of the crack in the empire, 1968. At the same time, MCI was allowed to begin radio service on a very uncommercial basis in St. Louis. 6 years later, MCI was allowed to broaden their operations considerably. That was 1974. The same year, the U.S. government filed an antitrust suit against AT&T. This was the beginning of the end. Now, there's a big fight for years. The first judge got sick 4 years later, and then entered a man named Harold Green, a refugee from Nazi Germany who'd participated in the Justice Department's civil rights legislation in the early 60s. A magnificent man. Congress, not wanting to have anything to do with this case, left the entire thing in the hands of one political appointee who turned out to have a conscience, worked very hard, drove the phone company crazy. Now, in this period, we had a political situation which began in the 70s with Vietnam and Watergate, loss of power and loss of faith in authority, tax revolts in California, suddenly a lot of talk about deregulation. Jerry Ford's running around smiling. Carter comes in smiling better. We had airline deregulation, and then we had Reagan in this state of panic. I'll give people whatever they want, you will feel better. Suddenly, we had an administration that was committed to deregulation at any cost. Green, the judge in the case, tried to resist this. He resisted a few tricks by the phone company. The phone company finally called it all off in the beginning of 1982 and agreed to break themselves up. Green tried to drive a hard bargain with them, and the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which has jurisdiction over this, smashed through with a free market ideology that forced a new wrinkle in the case, which was that the entire system of phone pricing in this country would be altered radically over the judge's authority. So now we are all going to pay more, and it will be the consumer, not the traditional loop of subsidy. So the question is, now that we've broken up the world's greatest communications empire, and we have done so in a very haphazard way, and we will follow this skit with an explanation of where we will go from here.
You may stay on the line, and an operator will answer. There is no charge for this call. You have reached a non-working number in the 976 exchange. Please consult your directory for your desired program. You have reached a non-working number in the 976 exchange. Please consult your directory for your desired program.
This is a recording. 212-1C. You have dialed a number which cannot be reached from your calling area. We're sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry. You have dialed a number which cannot be reached from your calling area. This is a recording.
Please be sure you have checked the telephone directory for the right number.
Your international call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
Please be sure you have checked the telephone directory for the right number and are dialing correctly. This is not intended as a call and there is no new number. Please be sure you have checked the telephone directory for the right number and are dialing correctly. This is a recording. This is a recording.
Again. This is a recording. 212-10.
We're sorry. The call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again. Call your operator to help. Call your operator to help. Call your operator to help. 1C. This is a recording. 212.
Hello?
Hello, New York Telephone. Can I help you?
Hello, operator?
Hello, New York Telephone. Can I help you?
Yes, is this the operator?
This is New York Telephone Information Center. Can I help you?
Yeah, I had some questions. I just got my phone
Yes, can I have
bill.
your name and address, and I'll send them along to you, the booklets.
No, let me, I just have a few simple questions.
Yes, we have some nice booklets that we're sending out to anybody with questions. Your name and address, please?
No, well, okay, look, see, I have this phone that I got your flyer in the bill that said that now I'm going to have to worry about either buying or leasing a phone. What's the difference? I mean, what is it going to cost more now? I mean, what's happening? Hello?
Yes, hello. I'll be with you in just a minute. The telephone. You want to know about the telephone? The changes. Yes, of course. The changes.
Yeah, like, do I own my phone now? Is this part now that you've
own your
broken up?
phone? Do you own your phone now? Your bill, your phone. I'll be right with you, sir. Your telephone repair. Your bill. Did you want to know about repairs?
Hello,
your
operator?
bill? Yes. Hello. Can I help you, sir?
Yeah. Is your supervisor there?
Supervisor?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem, sir?
Well, I want to know about my phone. Like, now, if I own my own phone, do I have to still pay you?
New York Telephone will no longer repair telephone equipment. Any telephone equipment you lease from us is being transferred to AT&T on January 1st, 1984. AT&T will own, maintain, and service this equipment. Yes, sir?
I don't have a broken phone. My phone works.
Your phone works.
It's okay.
Oh, you are calling from your own telephone,
yes,
and it works
I'm calling
fine.
from my own telephone. Now, this is your phone, I think. It says property of New York Telephone.
Yes, that is, you have two options. You can continue to lease your phone that's in your home, or you can purchase it.
Well, okay, what if I purchase it, will it be less money?
If you purchase the telephone, it will be less money.
Or
how much will it cost? See the price chart at the price chart.
What
sort of phone do you have,
operator,
sir?
I don't have a price chart. I'm sorry. That's not in my bill.
What sort of phone do you have, sir?
I have a touch tone.
A touch tone? A traditional touch tone?
Yes.
A princess touch tone?
No, not a
princess.
Trim
line touch tone.
Operator, is your supervisor there?
No, he doesn't seem to be in at the moment, thank heavens.
Well, look, could you just have somebody who knows what they're talking about call me and
Sir,
tell
I'm
me?
very well informed on this matter. Now, if you have any questions, just put them to me and I'll help you out.
Okay, if I own my own phone, is it going to cost me more?
Will it cost you more? Until further notice, New York Telephone will continue to bill you the monthly rental fee for your leased telephone under a contract with AT&T.
I don't have a leased telephone. I'll give you back your telephone. You can have it. I'll buy one, okay?
Oh, yes, you can buy a telephone. That is one of your options.
Yep. So will it cost me more to buy a telephone and have the line from you, or will it cost me more to lease a telephone and have you provide the line as well?
And us provide the line as well. You'd like to lease your telephone or own your telephone? Where will I get the telephone equipment? Getting your telephone equipment will be similar to the way you now get electrical appliances for your home. You buy your toaster, vacuum cleaner, and hair dryer wherever you
Operator,
wish.
we're not talking about toasters and vacuum cleaners. We're talking about telephones.
Yes, I was getting to the telephone part. You'll be able to purchase your telephone.
And I were trapped in my bed.
Sir, you're being very difficult with me, sir.
Operator, look, just
What's your number? What's your operator's number?
My operator's number?
Yes, your name or your number. New York telephone operators are supposed to say
Sir,
names and numbers.
sir, I just recently got this job, and if you wouldn't mind not say... Sir? Hello? Sir?
Your international call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again. I'll call your operator to help you. This is a recording. 303-13. We're sorry, your international call cannot be completed as...
In a word, buy your phone. Buy as many phones as you can. They're great little toys. So here we are back at the problem, which is that we are all going to have to pay a lot more for something that may, in fact, decline in service. Now, stepping back to why it broke up, you have to consider that the information industry is our great bailout in America. This is why our economy is meant to survive now. We're all going to get more jobs, more national growth, etc., out of information industry. This is books, magazines, universities, education, grade schools, satellites, you name it, records, TV, computers, and telephones. And I'm not sure they're all right, but the fact is that in a few years, people will be running factories in Manila where no people work, and they will be doing it by dialing Manila and telling those machines what to do. I don't know what this means about the future creation of jobs. It might do something for a couple of people in this country. In the world picture, it doesn't mean a lot of jobs. We will be exporting consultants, hardware, and software. Now, the fact is that telephones were the first step to the creation of that information industry. And the reason Ma Bell had to go is that Ma Bell was very good at what she did. Ma Bell gave us this great service and continued. Bell Telephone never was the first to innovate. It was not the first to give us dial tones. It was very slow at a lot of things, but it caught up. It always kept the competition out. It always dealt very well with the government. Ma Bell was a bit static, and technology had eventually caught up with Ma. Ma had to go because Ma was in the way. Now what we have is a society where you can get down to politics and you can see very clearly that the future is going to be a clear division between the haves and the have-nots. In every home, in every office in the United States, people with the cash are going to do certain things. People without the cash are going to wish they could. For some, we're going to have a wonderful world, the electronic cottage of the future. The parents both work at home. They do all their work through, there are no offices. It's just a little computer center. Everything zips in and out. And you've got wall video units. Everybody watches great Panavision films in their homes. The kids all have computers. You tell your wall you want to talk to mom or your lawyer, and the lawyer's voice appears magically. You can call your home and tell the air conditioner to go on when you're coming in from the airport and there's a heat wave, or you can tell the heating to go on. It's really wonderful. Paradise, if you can afford it. On the other hand, there are going to be people who can't afford these things. And with reference to that, we refer back to an AT&T study that was meant to stop it from being broken up during the divestiture case in court. And this AT&T submitted evidence based on the 1970 census saying that black people with a price increase doubling would go from 85% having phones to 80, with a down to 58% perhaps. The very poor black people would get down to 33% having phones. Telephones are, of course, very important. As subways and buses rise, you need a telephone more and more to communicate with the world. This is not a laughing matter. Instead of having walls that they can talk to and dial their businesses, they will have party lines. Some people in this country will be going back to the 1940s in their service. It will be harder to get dial tones. We may have a terrible time for those of us who cannot afford to participate in this future that's being opened up through competition, which can do marvelous things, as we all know in America. I'm sorry to say that Congress is not doing a very good job on this point, and I'm sorry to say that I'm not sure that anybody following Reagan will do that much of a better job, because it may be too late, and no one is considering the issue carefully enough. Telephones are now a commodity. Just like you can buy one for $8 and throw it away when it's broken, you will not be able to afford certain commodities. We don't all own gold. And this keys, for most of you out there, this keys on the access charge dispute, which was scheduled for January 1st. We were all going to pay $2 more a month for our telephones. This is the charge I was talking about before, where a lot of long-distance costs were higher, so that we could all afford local service. This is no longer a problem for AT&T because they no longer provide local service, and they don't feel like charging extra on long distance to fund that local service. And you look at the way the argument's framed now, they have a very valid case. I mean, why should they be competing with other companies in long distance and charging higher rates? Why should they foot the bill to support our new local regional telephone companies? So the Federal Communications Commission says how to cover the cost, don't bother. If you can't pay it, don't get a phone. Congress is talking about reversing this at the moment. I think they may just stall it until after the 1984 elections. That would be very wonderful for Ronald Reagan, be wonderful for our elected representatives who have given this very little thought, and it would be wonderful for the phone companies, which will get their access charge increases, which could come to $7 a month more for all of us by 1989. I think it could come to a lot more than that, because on top of that, the local companies are demanding a lot of rate increases. They're stuck holding the bag on service. AT&T, because of its computer, they're going to go compete with IBM and a lot of international companies. They need the money. They're not going to cut the long-distance costs as much as we were told they would. And since they get most of their money from long distance, they're going to keep it quite high. They've offered 10%, 10.5% cuts. They're saying at the moment they may cut it a little bit more if Congress will just back off this bill they're talking about. And when you consider that AT&T made off with 1/3 of the capital of the company, but 2/3 of the revenue sources of the old AT&T, we're talking about a pretty good deal for that company. So now we're stuck with these regional holding companies that will be asking our regulators in each state for rate increases. Now, it sounds very easy. Just keep the rate increases down. Okay? That'll be, we'll all telephone and write our regulators and our state capitals and stop these things. Well, the fact is, if they do that, this will hasten the decline of our local service. And this is not necessarily a solution for us all. The local telephone companies are going to need those rate increases. They're going to demand more than they need because they don't trust us all, and they're going to take whatever they can get. They've already started. And the regulators are all confused. Most of them are former hacks who couldn't get elected to the assembly anymore, so they've taken these little sinecures in the state capitol. They listen to a lot of lawyers. They don't know what to do. They do what they're told to do. A couple of them take their job seriously, and these people may well go mad over the next 5 years. They're going to have a very angry public. They want to give discounts to big corporations who are setting up their own communication systems nationally, internally, to tie together all their manufacturing and stock brokerage operations. It's called bypassing. It's a very major threat to these companies, and they are going to be demanding discounts, or else they are going to set up their own companies or turn to people like MCI, which can do it cheaper than the regional telephone companies. It's a very good argument to the regulators. If the regulators do not give these telephone companies the right to charge corporations less because they're bulk service buyers, these bulk service buyers will leave the system. And only 1 or 2% of all business telephone users take up perhaps 50, 60% of revenues in many major cities in the country. The loss of those customers could mean the death of these telephone companies. It could be like broadcast TV in 20 years or 10 years after cable has eaten away all the best customers and the best advertising base, and you've got a lot of very poor people watching very, very, very poor broadcast TV. We could see a human swamp of service. So I think we've got to consider the fact that just by keeping the rates low and as blanket a way as possible will probably not solve the problem. The FCC was going to balance all of this. They promised these cuts in long distance. We would get, by paying $2 more a month, we'd get cheaper long-distance rates, but that only works if you pay $20 a month, then you break even in long distance. If you pay $10 a month for long distance, you would in fact lose money. By 1989, you would in fact lose a lot of money because you'd be paying $7 a month. It would take $70 a month in long distance to break even. So what we have now is a challenge to devise solutions, one that politicians have not risen to, something that business people have no interest in because they've all got their own systems. They're very excited about the future. A lot of money is being made in telecommunications and this new information industry, and they have no interest in rocking the boat. So we've got to do it ourselves, I think. I think we can expect Congress to devise some sort of safety net for the very poor, the elderly, the indigent. If you can prove you're very poor, you're on welfare, you will have some sort of subsidy for phone service, but the minute you start using the phone more than a certain amount, you're back on normal rates. Those normal rates are not something you can afford. Basically, you can have a cheap phone if you don't use it. This is not really any way to deal with the government agencies those people have to deal with. And it's not any way to keep a democratic society together. Part of our democracy now is the fact that everyone can communicate with each other cheaply. And the society will be vastly changed by the fact that, especially looking at these ads on television for the families that did not get their children computers and those children flunked out of college, these terrible tragedies of the neglect of parents who couldn't afford $3,000 systems for their 8-year-old kids. We're going to be looking at a society that divides along far more distinct class lines than we've had before. And in terms of regional lines, rural phone service is going to cost a lot more than it has. And subsidizing that, you're going to hear arguments, well, subsidizing rural areas will mean that you're subsidizing Ronald Reagan's ranch in California. We don't want to do that, do we? So we don't want a rural subsidy. So all these population growth areas in the West will somehow have to pay, as in Baker, California, Pacific Telephone Company projects if they charge the true rate of service, the true cost, will be $88 a month for service if you live in Baker, California. I don't think anyone will want to live in Baker, California at that point. So what we have here is a society which, under the rules of Reaganomics or any sort of economics that are emerging today, will divide along sharper class lines and will be ducking, if it continues to do so, this major political question of how you divide a country's spoils. That is what politics are, and not enough people are playing the game of politics in telecommunications. And I think people had better start participating. No easy answers.
Hi. I'm not home right now, but if you want to leave a message, just start talking at the sound of the tone. Hello? This is your mother. Are you there? Are you coming home? Hello? Is anybody home? Well, you don't know me, but I know you, and I've got a message to give to you. Here come the planes. So you better get ready to go.